Hey, good morning, class, or good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're consuming this. What we're going to be talking about today first is language, and these are going to be a couple of quick hit topics that we want to go over. We're trying to close out before the end of the semester to get everything sort of wrapped up tight. Okay, first of all, let's talk about language. Okay, we define language as any formal system, which means it has mutually agreed upon values and constructs that we've all agreed to, of gestures, signs, sounds, and symbols used to communicate thoughts. Okay? Language is any formal system of gestures, signs, sounds, or symbols used or conceived as a means of communicating thought. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right? So the first thing we need to do is when we talk about words or we talk about language is we need to understand the definition of meaning. Because if we use language to communicate meaning or to give meaning to things, the definition of meaning is the understanding a specific person has for anything in his environment. The specific is a understanding a specific person has for anything in his or her environment. So this is a marker, and we can generally agree on that. But that interpretation of that is simply related to an individual. Just grabbing things here around in my environment. Many of us would recognize this as a Post-it. But again, that is very specific. If you didn't know what a Post-it was, this could be a piece of paper. One other person may communicate blue, and this is the color blue. So every person has a different meaning that they specifically attach to things in their environment. Now, there are some things that we have agreed upon as far as language. The first thing we want to talk about is a denotative meaning. Denotative meaning. Okay? Denotative meaning is a specific meaning associated with a word. We sometimes refer to denotative as the dictionary definition. Okay? Now, the flip side of that is the connotative meaning. The connotative meaning. Now, the connotative meaning is meaning that we get from the association of the word, ideas suggested or associated with word. Okay. Denotative meaning, sick. Sick means to be physically ill. Okay. Bob is not at work today. Bob is sick. All right. Everybody understands the denotative meaning of the word sick. Now, this is going to make me sound like an incredibly old guy. But if I then said, did you see that car Bob was driving? That thing was sick. Okay, we now know that sick means good. That's the connotative meaning. Okay? Everybody, so we oftentimes transition to where the denotative meaning actually begins to achieve the connotative meaning. And the example that pops to mind is we now use the word literally when we would used to have used it, and it means nearly or effectively. Or, okay, for instance, my head literally exploded. Now, the denotative meaning of literally means that it actually happened. Okay? The connotative meaning of literally now is that it figuratively happened. Okay? My head did not explode. If I said, I met Ariana Grande and my head literally exploded. No, your head did not explode. Okay? You, figuratively, your mind was blown. Okay? So think about words we use every day that have no real connection to the denotative meaning. Like, into this week, Black Friday. Why do we call it Black Friday? Well, that's because, believe it or not, when you're on a ledger, when you're in deficit, you write in red. The Friday after Thanksgiving sales used to be so big for most retailers, that would be the day they started to show a profit, which meant they could write in black. Thus, it became Black Friday. That connotative meaning of the Friday after Thanksgiving being a big shopping day and the word black meaning big shopping day has nothing to do with the denotative meaning. It is purely connotative meaning. Okay? What happens when you get a demerit? You get a black mark on your record. Okay, it doesn't make any difference what color pen you use. You say, I'm going to give you a black, you're going to get a black mark on your record. Okay, again, connotative meaning, black is bad. Okay, so we need to be aware of that. Okay, now an individual's engagement in their environment can alter the way they perceive language. Okay, very simple word that we should all understand. Mother. Okay? Mother to an infant is the person who provides food. Mother to a toddler is the person who sets boundaries and keeps the individual safe. Mother to an adult is someone who provides emotional support, hopefully. Mother to a fully grown adult whose parent is aging can be a source of pain or grief. Okay? And it all comes from the word mother. And we all assume that when we talk about things, that we're talking about the same thing. Okay? That everybody's experience, if I want to invoke mother or motherhood to get my listeners to emote in a certain way, we have to work on the assumption that mother means the same thing to everyone. And we all know it doesn't. Okay? Your mother may have been a jerk. I don't know. But I don't know that going in. Now, in general terms, if I use the phrase mother to evoke a specific meaning, culturally we are, aware enough of each other to where we will all agree with that. Okay? But we do have to be aware that in specifics, dealing with individuals, okay, that's not always going to be the case. All right? So, here, another one. Toothache. So, if I say that I have a student and that kid is a real toothache, am I saying that individual, what am I conjuring up? Okay? For most of us, saying that someone is a toothache or saying that something is a toothache means a dull, throbbing pain. Okay? And we all kind of agree on that. But, the level of that engagement with that phrase, it doesn't literally mean my teeth are hurting. Again, I'm going with a connotative definition of that phrase, not a denotative definition of the phrase. Okay? We all say that language and thought are intertwined. Okay? Words, as we said early on, words are symbols. So, in some of the things that we discuss and some of the things that we apply words to so that we can communicate thoughts about them have no existence in the concrete world. Democracy, love, hate, grief, none of those things are physical. I can't go out and put my hand on democracy. I can't go out and touch grief. Okay? But there should be a strong link between what is known as the sign and the referent. Okay? The sign is the word you use, and the referent is the thing you're referring to. Okay? So, as humans, we only have words and language to communicate. People may argue that we can telepathically communicate, but in reality, humans only have language and words to communicate to each other. So, this sign-referent relationship has to be very specific. And we strive and we struggle to make that sign-referent relationship perfect, but we never achieve it. If you go way, way back to the first class of those communication models we talked about, I have an idea that I want to communicate. Well, translate, so that's M1, message 1. But in translating that from the sign or from the reference to the sign using language, I lose something in the translation. It's automatic. It can't be prevented. Okay? That's something that we need to be consciously aware of at all times. Okay, if we want to talk about freedom, and when somebody uses the word freedom, okay? Communists in the old days used to use freedom. The word freedom meant freedom from possessions. Where the collective owned everything, you were free from having to purchase and having to buy things. Everything would be provided for you. Okay, freedom for us means the opportunity to accrue things economically. Economic freedom means that we accrue on our own. It's the same word, but the referent is completely different. Okay? So let's talk how oral and written communication differ. And I'm not going to write all these on the board for you because these are going to be, there's going to be 10 of them. I think there's 10 of them. No, there's like 12 of them. Okay? First off, oral language has a smaller variety of words. When we speak, we all fall into on crutches. One of mine is, I almost said it right there, one of mine is okay. To make sure that everybody understands, I look at people and go, okay. And that's my cue to try to get feedback from people. So you're going to reuse words. You don't have a mental thesaurus that you can grab and look at while you're up speaking. You have to go with the words that you're comfortable with. So oral language will have a smaller variety of words. Oral language is going to have fewer syllables. Okay? Words will have fewer syllables. You're not going to say onomatopoeia. You're going to say it sounds like itself. Okay? You'll break it into several words that have smaller syllables. Why? Because it's easier for us to remember. Oral language is going to have shorter sentences. You're not going to be up here and talk like William Faulkner or when he was writing a book. You're not going to string 14 clauses together. You're going to use short declarative sentences. And that's good because with oral language, we need shorter sentences so people can understand better. Okay? Oral language has more self-reference. You'll talk about yourself more. Self-reference. You'll refer to yourself. You'll use I, me, mine a lot more. Okay? Oral language has fewer qualifying terms or precise numerical words. You won't say when just at talking. You won't say 438,347.147. You'll say about 430,000. Lights went off. We're back. Okay? You'll say you'll use round numbers. Oral language has more superlative and extreme words. None, all, every, always, never. Okay? You'll use those a lot more. Oral language has more qualifying statements. Okay? Clauses that begin with words like, well, unless this happens, or except in this case. Okay? You'll use a lot more qualifying clauses. Oral languages have more repetition of words and syllables. Again, remember when we said we have a smaller variety of words? The words you're comfortable with are the words you're going to use, so you're going to use them more. Oral language has more injections. You will never write wow in a paper. You'll never write really in a paper. You're never going to write you're kidding in a paper. Okay? But when using oral language, we use those phrases. Okay, and the last thing is, oral language has more colloquial and non-standard words. My favorite is, "Jeet yet? No, you? Go to McDonald's? Okay. Did you eat yet?" Becomes the word "jeet yet." Okay. I remember when my wife was originally from Vermont, when she came down and visited us for the first time in Alabama, walks on, old friend of mine I hadn't seen in years. First thing I said to him was, "How's your mom and them?" Okay. "How's your mom and them?" Which my wife didn't say anything, but later on she went, "What were you saying? How's your mom?" "What?" And I said, "How's your mom and them?" It's just a way of asking how are you and your family. Okay? She was just completely blown away. And we use more colloquialisms and more regional dialect words than we do when we are writing. We have a chance to review our language. So the basis of these 12 things is that oral language is more spontaneous. Again, let's run through them real quick. Oral language has a smaller variety of words. Oral language has words with fewer syllables. Oral language has shorter sentences. Oral languages have more self-referent words. Oral language has fewer qualifying terms or quantifying terms or precise numerical words. Oral language has this is one of them. Oral language has more pseudo-quantifying terms, meaning more, few, most, those kind of words. Okay? So 5 is oral language has fewer quantifying terms or precise numerical words. 6 is oral language has more pseudo-quantifying terms like many, few, some. Oral language has more extreme and superlative words, none, all, very, never. Oral language has more qualifying statements, clauses that begin with things like except and unless. Oral language has more repetition of words and syllables. Oral language uses more contractions. I forgot to hit that one too. Can't, don't. Your English teacher probably said don't ever use contractions in your term papers. Okay, you can when you're using oral communication. Oral language has more interjections. Wow, really? No, you're kidding. And oral language has more colloquial words. Okay, so here are some guidelines, some ways you should use language. Be vivid. Okay, it's one thing to say it was very colorful. It's another thing to say the blues and reds and greens and yellows and orange were very bright and shiny and changed constantly. Okay, so use very vivid language. All right? Speak accurately. All right? Here's one that we need to make sure everybody understands. A simile uses a phrase like or as. He was strong like a freight train. Okay? You can't say, a metaphor is an implied comparison. A metaphor may work in some cases, but there's always going to be somebody in the back when you say, this guy was as strong as a freight train. Somebody's going to go, really? He could pull 13 cars loaded with coal? No, he couldn't. He was strong like a freight train. Okay? And then there's hyperbole, which is an intended exaggeration. Okay? And again, we referenced this before. My sister met Drake last night and she died. Really? I'm so sorry. I mean, did she have a heart problem? I mean, an aneurysm? What happened? She didn't die. It's an hyperbole is an exaggerated statement in order to make a point. Stay away from hyperbole. Okay? Try to stay away from metaphor. Since simile has a explicit word like, okay, similes are good for comparison. But again, remember, your job is to be accurate. Be vivid, but be accurate. Okay? Some other ideas? Rhythm. Okay? Make sure, and you'll see when you watch Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, which I'll post a video on that tomorrow. You'll see how he uses rhythm to continue to pace the speech. Okay? Use parallelism. Okay? So if Patrick Henry had said, give me liberty or just kill me, it would not have had the impact of give me liberty or give me death. Okay? Those are they're structured exactly the same. They run in parallel. That's why they catch your attention. Okay? Repetition. This one is very important. repetition. And you're going to see 4 phrases in Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech that he repeats over and over to take us through the movements of his speech. Okay? The repetition of that phrase allows you to really engage the speech. And then alliteration. Now, alliteration does not mean the Peruvian pot-bellied pig perambulated promiscuous. It's Bill Clinton's in the textbook, Bill Clinton's 1992 acceptance speech. Somewhere in this country, a child is being born in America. Let it be our cause to give that child a happy home, a healthy family, and a hopeful future. The B's, the H's there, use alliteration. Okay? A couple of last things. Number 1, adapt your language to the audience. We've already talked about audience analysis. Okay, if you're dealing with a group of thoracic surgeons, you're not going to want to talk like you're using the same language like you're talking to a first aid class. You're going to want to elevate your language. Be professional. Okay, no matter what the environment is, there's never a good time for you to use the F word when standing in front of an audience. Occasionally, even you may hear me use some what are referred to as soft profanities like damn or hell. Okay, but once you get past that, there's no need for it. Also, don't use words. Be inclusive with. So the third thing, adapt your language, be professional, and be inclusive. Okay, there is no reason for you to alienate people in your audience. Okay. I have a former military service member who uses the phrase "you females," which in a male-dominated military environment is acceptable. What that does is, why say "you females" when you can say "women"? Okay? It's the same thing. It means exactly the same. One, though, alienates, would say that "you females" sets the women in the audience apart from the men in the audience. Don't say handicap. Say a person with a disability. Don't say insane person. Say a person with a mental illness. Don't say person in a wheelchair. Say person who uses a wheelchair. Don't say wheelchair bound. Say a person who uses a wheelchair. People will say that that's just political correctness run amok. I don't think it's political correctness run amok. My job as a speaker is to communicate to the audience. And if the words I use will alienate and create distance between me and the audience, I'm not being an effective communicator. Okay? So take all that into mind. Don't assume that all racial, ethnic, gender, demographic groups are the same. Women believe, blacks will vote, poor people think. Don't ever say that. Okay, especially don't attach negative. Homeless people are criminals. Okay? If you have homeless people, you will have crime. That means all homeless people are criminals or tend to be criminals. Stay away from that. And then again, there's words ethnic slurs, racial slurs that you should never ever use when speaking in public. I don't even care if you're just talking to a friend. Okay? There should be some words that you just don't use. Okay? So that winds us up for language. We're now going to launch into a second topic, problem-solution speeches. So put language aside. We're now going to talk about problem-solution speeches. Okay? Yeah, and this is going to be problem-solution is easy. There's just a few things you have to remember, so we're going to get through this really quickly. First of all, I'm going to tell you your next speech is going to be a problem-solution speech. Okay? Pick something you care about. Pick something that there is a solution for. Okay, if you're going to pick racism, you're going to have trouble solving it in 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, and pick a topic where there's ample evidence. Make life easier on yourself. Don't pick something esoteric. Pick something that is easy to figure out. Okay, so first off, first part of a problem solution speech is, that's correct, the problem. Okay? Real simple. Two things in the problem: the cause and the effect. And those mean exactly what they seem to mean. The problem is the cause. What is causing the problem breaks down into what is causing the problem and what is the effects of the problem. Okay? You have to be able to show, in effect, that the people that are listening to you, your audience, are being impacted by your problem. Otherwise, what's the solution? They don't care. If you come to me and say, I have a problem, I can demonstrate the cause, but I can't show why it cares to you. Or why you care. Guess what? They're never going to go for your solution. Okay? If I want to talk about global climate change, and I say that if we don't stop global climate change, in 10 years, the island nation in the South Pacific of Vanuatu is going to just be flooded and washed off the face of the earth. Nobody's going to care. It's not going to make any difference to anybody in Aiken County. Oh, sure, you may be able to say, hey, listen, we're all humans, and this is part of the human condition, and we should care because they're humans. And you're right about that, and that could be part of your effect. But in reality, if the best I can come up with is the island nation of Vanuatu that probably has a population of 20,000 is going to disappear, I'm not going to have a whole lot of traction here in Aiken County. How about if I said the effect is Charleston is going to be flooded, and it's going to cost the state of South Carolina billions of dollars that taxpayers of South Carolina are going to have to pay. Georgia, Savannah is going to be flooded. It's going to cost billions of dollars if Tybee Island and the Barrier Islands, all those disappear. It's going to mean billions of dollars in income for the state. It's going to mean billions of dollars of taxes that have got to be paid. Okay? Suddenly, now that's personal. That effect affects me. Okay? And that's what you should be striving for. You should be able to clearly identify the cause. And you should be able to identify an effect that affects the audience. Two things. Number one, do you have to say cause first and then effect? Absolutely not. In fact, let's just say oftentimes, not necessarily usually, oftentimes, it's better to give the effect first. Hey, did you know last year 20,000 teenagers in the United States ruined their right arms or their arms pitching in youth athletic baseball leagues? Well, that's the effect there, and the cause second. 20,000. I don't know what the numbers are, but sometimes you use effect first to tie it in. Now, a lot of things like cancer, diseases, economic problems have a myriad of causes. Do you want to cover every single one of them? No, you never can, and we're going to discuss which ones you want to do first. So we're going to turn my camera a little bit because I want to show you something here. Okay? The next thing is your solution. All right, your solution. Solution breaks down into 2 points. Validity, efficacy. Okay? Not validity, sorry. Been a long day. Viability. Okay, if I wanted to solve global warming or global climate change, and the way I suggested we solve it is to build a sphere around the entire Earth that would filter out all the UV rays that are causing all the heating. Would it be effective? Yeah, sure, it would be effective. It would have efficacy, but it's not viable. We can't do it. Okay? So first of all, your solution has to be something that can actually be done. Okay? It has to be viable. It has to be a valid solution. Okay? And then it has to be effective. It's got to cause fewer problems than your solution does. Okay, this is efficacy. Okay? So, back at the turn of the 20th century, a guy from the University of Alabama saw the problem, erosion in southern states. Massive amounts of topsoil was being washed away. So the cause was that the farmers who were growing cotton were leaching all of the important minerals out of the soil that bound it and held it together. And the effect was, with those minerals all gone, when it rained, all that topsoil would run off. And it was devastating the southern landscape. So he knew that the Japanese had a vine that they planted that they used to help secure the land while it was recovering and rebuilding the nutrients. Okay? So was it viable? Sure. He brought that vine over and planted it in some places in western Alabama to see how it would affect it was. Now, the question is efficacy. So let me tell you what the vine was. It's called kudzu. Okay? So they brought in kudzu to solve one problem, and ultimately what they did was they created a bigger problem in that kudzu overruns and destroys everything it comes in contact with. Okay, so did they cause more problems? So the efficacy of the solution was not there. Okay, so efficacy. So you have to have problem with cause and effect, and your solution has to be viable and it has to be effective. Now, here's one other thing you have to remember. Okay, your solution has to deal with the cause, not the effect. Okay? So if I'm going to say that the problem is we have too many people getting lung cancer and the principal cause is smoking, and the effect is 20,000 people a year or 200,000 people a year die of lung cancer. My solution is to come up with effective treatments for lung cancer. Okay, I'm dealing with the effect, I'm not dealing with the cause. All those people are still going to get lung cancer. Okay? Now, if my cause is, everybody understand what I'm trying to say? Okay? That's a rhetorical question because clearly you can't answer. If you can't draw a direct line from your solution to your cause, you have a problem. Okay, let's take an example real quick, and this will wind this lecture up. Okay? Problem. Head injuries in the NFL. The effects. CTE, which you can look up, I don't remember what it breaks out to, but it's long-term brain trauma. Okay? And early death. Now, for the causes, I can name 5 causes very quickly. Okay? Well, I can name a couple. Equipment, rules, enforcement of those rules, let's go with those 3. Okay? So if I come up with my solution is better helmets. Okay? And I can show that it's viable. I can show that better helmets only cost an extra $400 per helmet. Okay, so that will only cost the league a couple of $100,000 a year, or $1.5 million a year, which would be far more than what they would pay out in settlements. Okay, so that's viable. Efficacy. Okay, well, let me change that a little bit. As far as viable, yeah, the league could do it. League could do it. Sure, just do it. Now, as far as efficacy is concerned, again, helmets, let's say $3 million a year. Settlements, are going to cost $17 million a year. if we don't get something done. So efficacy, it's far cheaper for the NFL to buy and provide everybody new helmets. Okay, so this looks great. Here's the problem. You identified two other causes: faulty rules and bad enforcement of the rules that are actually there. You haven't solved your problem because you haven't dealt with the causes. Okay? You're dealing with some of the effects, but until you deal with all the causes. Now, in a 4 to 6 minutes speech, what does that mean? Well, that means when you get to the cause, you say, hey, listen, there's a lot of causes for head injuries in the NFL. We're going to deal with one of them today. Is this going to solve all the problems? It is not. But with the time, with 4 to 6 minutes, I'm just going to be able to tell you about one cause, its effects, and one solution. Okay? Everybody understand that? Okay? That's problem solution speeches. Remember, 4 parts to a problem solution speech. Okay, the problem has a cause and an effect, and the solution has viability and efficacy. If you don't have those 4 things in your problem solution speech, there's going to be a problem with a solution and a cause. Okay, never mind. All right, if you have questions, McInnisV, MCINNISV at atc.edu. I will get this posted tonight. In the next couple of days, I will get your persuasive speech. I will talk about persuasive speaking because we're going to be doing a speech a week until the end of the semester. Okay, I will give you your outlines on this. We'll be doing the next day or two. It'll get posted. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email.